This is another installment of our Confessions of a Street Broker segment. And today we have the third tallest guy in industrial real estate in Dallas-Fort Worth, the one and only Ernst Young. Rich, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I'm just going to start off first. Did you cold plunge today?
Absolutely.
I know you're a plunger.
Absolutely.
So in honor of Rich, I cold plunged this morning. I jumped in my pool. I was like, I want to have some commonality with you today.
Your pool
like
was probably 55 degrees.
That's weak. Is that weak sauce?
39 is where I'm at.
Okay. Do you have water flowing over you, or is it stagnant? So it's even worse.
It's the cold water flow.
Yeah. So
that reduces the thermal layer.
That's
from
right.
what I've been told.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
Best investment I've ever made.
Yeah. I remember you told me, you said that I don't need a cup of coffee. No. I'm on fire right now.
5:05 a.m. every morning.
All right. So Ernst Young is the president, owner of Ernst Young Company, boutique industrial commercial real estate brokerage here in Dallas. One of the top guys in the North Dallas submarket, but does stuff all over the Metroplex. Rich and I became pretty good friends, I'd say probably after the Bake debacle transaction.
Oh, God, yeah. Bake brands.
Yeah, that might have been the deal that broke me in brokerage. So
it was fun watching it fall apart.
Oh, my gosh, that was terrible. But yeah, Rich and I delivered everything a client wanted, and they told us it wasn't good enough. So anyways, that's a long story there. But anyways, after that, we worked our ass off on trying to figure that out, and we kind of became buds with that. And that's about the time I was transitioning more into the principal side. And then I was like, hey man, like I'm buying, so let me know. And sure enough, I'd probably say a month later, we rip off Merrill and go buy that. And that was
a good night with Keenan.
Yeah. And so not only a friend, a partner also. I think your whole family's in partnerships with us.
I know. that San Antonio deal looked pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, Rich, what you started in the business 10 years ago?
About 10 years ago.
10 years ago. So just give us your history. I know, came into the business with your dad, but
Yeah. So I was in management consulting at Ernst Young before, and I'm from North Dallas. I grew up in Plano and went to Oklahoma, and I went to school in 07, 08 hit. And my dad, I grew up wanting to be a commercial real estate agent. Yeah. That's what my dad was. And 08 hit, he said, do not get into commercial real estate, which looking back, I mean, hindsight's 2020, would have been freaking an awesome time to get into the business. But I was a freshman. I was kind of figuring out my way. And so I did finance accounting at Oklahoma and moved into, sorry, my phone's ringing. It's going to do that quite a bit today. Yeah. So I went into kind of financial consulting at Ernst Young and did that for a couple years. Got part of a deal that sold as a pretty big deal for Ernst Young. And I asked how I was going to get paid on it. And they said, you're on salary. So it doesn't really work that way. About that time, I was kind of looking for a role to move to. My sister was an executive headhunter out in California. And she said, maybe look into that. I talked to my dad and he's like, well, maybe real estate could be a transition for you. I know you wanted to do that for a long time. And he was with a company that was really, I was actually just telling Will that it was the tenor rep arm of Vantage, and it split off. It's called the Harry B. Lucas Company. And he had been there for 30 years. Yeah. And I mean, really at the time, I didn't know a lot about what he did, but I knew it seemed exciting to go lease and sell buildings. And I said, let's do it. So he left. He took a client of his. It's a prominent family in Dallas, and they gave us like 350,000 feet of flex stuff.
Yeah.
So 1,000 to 5,000 foot spaces, and I was grinding the hell out of those deals, and it was honestly the best training grounds that could have happened for me. And I guess that was about 2015, and I was touring nonstop, trying to figure it out, and about 2.5 years in, that family, there's kind of a change of the guard, and they fired us. And it was a big wake up call because I kind of looked, I'm a finance guy, just nature. And I looked at the numbers and I was like, holy shit, 90% of our money is coming from this one customer. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. So we're doing a ton of landlord rep on,
were you managing it as well?
No,
or just
doing leasing. And, so I backed into it. And at that time, so when I got in the business, my dad had, there were some issues with him. And the only thing I got in our partnership agreement was that he had to go get a full body scan. And he had stage 4 prostate cancer.
Yeah.
Gave him 6 months to live. He fought. He lived for 7 years. But at that time, he was kind of like, hey, look, this is a nice segue for you. It's a soft landing. You can kind of go build this thing how you want. And so 2.5 years in, I didn't really know what I was doing much in the business. I mean, you can you're getting to that, the jump. We lost our biggest customer. I just gotten engaged, and we brought on Andy Fulmer, and I think Garrett Goldstein was with us at the time. I was like, what the hell are we going to do? And so I just built a new strategy that was kind of like, it's the old NAI model, Mercer model. Yeah. Hey, we're going to be sub-market focused. We're going to know every tenant in the market. We're going to know every owner in the market. And we're going to kind of straddle it that way. And instead of having, 1 or 2 or 3 big customers, landlord driven, we're going to have 100 or 200. And, market knowledge is key. And that's what we're going to do. And so we built it that way. And it's interesting because I've told this story a number of times, especially the guys that we've recruited, because we're like a 18-person team now. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing because I followed the numbers, and we got fired, I guess, in end of June. So it was literally a 6-month process. Our numbers doubled the following 2 quarters. Yeah. And then they've kind of grown steadily over the years. I mean, we've seen kind of the craziest rise in Dallas commercial real estate. But even this year, where there's a big dip, I think we're going to end up probably about 25 to 30% over last year, which is our best year. So,
so you're going to be up this year.
Yeah, we're going to be up this year.
That's awesome.
Pretty significantly.
That's very rare.
Yeah. I mean, right now, you're reading all the headlines about what I call the alphabet brokers, which I love a lot of those guys, but they're having layoffs, and, they're trying to figure out their different game in this new real estate world that happens typically every 7 years, but it's been a longer time this time. And we're looking to hire. I mean, we're trying to grow the business, grow the brand, try to take on more market share, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, y'all are definitely in the conversation, right? I mean, well, you have the Tuesday Morning building listed, which is 1 million square feet in the heart of DFW.
Yeah, bring me a buyer for that.
Yeah.
Buy or lease it for sure.
Yeah. No, we looked at it.
We got close.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'm that big of a boy yet. Maybe in 2 years or something.
I do think that deal, it's one of those that we're going to look back, because there's deals and opportunities that you've looked at and you've passed on. And I know that like within 5 to 6 years, people are going to look back and be like, I cannot believe they bought it at that basis, which is kind of what people are saying or were saying about M2G when they bought it.
Yeah.
The time they're like, wow, they really stretched to get it. Then fast forward 6 months and everyone's like, they stole that deal.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's going to be a case study, because you have 46 acres in the middle of North Dallas that's basically irreplaceable, that you can do industrial on too, which is awesome infill location. So,
well, you got to be willing to take big swings like that in life.
Absolutely.
I will do some risky stuff. I don't know if I have the wherewithal to be that risky yet, but I kind of agree with you. Maybe it's really not risk in the end, but it's
all in the lens that you're looking at it in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is. So what made you decide to go to OU?
I got a scholarship there to go down there. I was actually, I was down to SMU. They gave me a big scholarship to be in the engineering school, kind of unprovoked. It was weird. I toured the engineering school when I was a senior in high school. I actually thought I was going to play college basketball.
Yeah.
And I played in it's a big dodgeball tournament that's in Plano at Prestonwood Church, actually right down the road.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. Like every year we played in it. And on that Saturday night, there's a guy named Cameron Rupp, who actually was a starting catcher for the Phillies for a couple years. He threw a ball, hit my thumb, tore up all the ligaments in my left hand, and I would spin the ball off my left thumb.
Yeah.
And so, like, I thought I was a better shooter. I thought I was a little more athletic than I was, but it really, when I couldn't shoot, it showcased that I wasn't as good of an athlete as I really thought I was.
Yeah.
Because I was like, hey, I'll go D1. I'll be like the end of the guy on the bench and, get a full ride or a partial ride and go to a good school and be set up after. But that ended real quick. Yeah. And so started looking through schools, and really what it came down to was SMU was probably, it came down to SMU and OU, but there's a lot of guys from Plano that went to OU and they're in fraternities, and they're taking me like Fiji Islander and like Coast Guard, Lambda Chi Coast Guard, these crazy parties that I've never seen before. And I'm 17, 18 years old driving to Norman. I was like, this is amazing. It honestly felt like heaven. And so I was like,
y'all do this every weekend?
I know. And at the time they're like, yeah, this is just like a normal Saturday.
Yeah.
Even though they were probably playing it for the entire year. So it made a lot of sense. They gave me scholarship, went up there, and it was close to home. And honestly, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. There's some guys in the business, like Luke Davis. He's a fraternity brother of mine. Yeah. A lot of guys in Dallas that are kind of, I'd say kind of influential guys that, and the group of guys that are in my fraternity and guys that I've connected with, they're business leaders in the DFW market. So I always liked that you could go there, get a good education. DFW is a really big sounding board for them, because if you're not going oil and gas, you kind of have to come to the closest major city, which is Dallas or really Houston.
Yeah. So no, it's I think there's a big power in the college you choose to go to and the network that it has afterwards. You see all these people on the internet talking about how, you don't need college anymore. I'm like, yeah, maybe not. But man, if you're part of a network that reaches very far, it's pretty powerful. Just, OU, Tech, those are very big networks.
Any of these local schools, like the Texas, obviously, like they have a massive alumni network, SMU, TCU, Tech, A&M. I mean, everyone's kind of cultish. Like everyone makes fun of A&M about being the cold, but everyone is to a degree.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But to your point on the school you go to, I've always said my most successful friends, like by far, did not go to college, because I think college does teach you to be very risk adverse and like not take chances. Yeah. But those guys are very obtuse. Yeah. Because my least successful friends definitely didn't go to college. College teaches you how to make $100,000 a year, right? And it says don't take these other risks, because those risks could lead you on the street, right? Yeah. But those are also the ones that are going to potentially pay off. Yeah. So I have a couple guys that have just like completely killed it, but they had a 4-year runway that we didn't. Yeah. And didn't have any debt at the end of it. I understand in theory. Yeah. But they're also the outlier. They're not. They're not the norm for sure.
And so, I hear that rhetoric a lot, and I'm like, I don't. I think college, in a way, kind of shows that you accomplished something. Yeah.
Well, it makes you grow up.
It makes you grow up.
You have to get through it and go to classes and, set your own schedule and live on your own and not have someone tell you what to do. Right. I mean, that's what it is.
That's very true. Well, tell me, what's probably your most creative deal that you've pulled off? What's your favorite? Like, if you had a monumental deal, like that was my Super Bowl deal. Which one was it?
Honestly, it's ongoing. It's
the Tuesday morning deal?
No, it's the executive deal that I took you through. That data center. Yeah. A guy in my office found it. He kind of tied it up, and he's like, hey, you good on this deal? And it's a TXU data center, and we're ripping all the stuff out and getting converted to a warehouse. And lease or sell it. So it's going to be a process.
Okay, so that is going to be like a 3-time grand slam deal for you on a home, But what about most creative brokerage deal you put together for a client you represented?
I mean, that's a tough one because there's been a multitude of different deals that are just like, I mean, that's the game in this. It's how do you get sticky enough to find a way to wipe it off enough to move on to the next one, right? Arrowhead Stairs and Trim is always a good one.
Okay.
Keenan actually represented a deal, I think it's 13801 Distribution Way or something. It was this 24,000 foot building on 2 acres. And I've been calling on Dave Harrison for a long time. He's probably my biggest client. We've bought buildings together since. We've talked about it. I think I've done 19 deals with him in the last 5 years. But
oh my gosh.
This was the first one. I'd been calling on him forever.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys and gals in the market had been calling on him too. And he wasn't loyal to anyone at the time. And I had read in Steve Brown's Dallas Morning News deal that he had signed a 50,000 foot lease on Diplomat.
That was in ML's building, right?
ML's building.
Because you had that listed for sublease.
I did.
Which I looked at with Bake.
Yeah, with Bake, which would have been perfect for Bake.
Yeah.
But I had lost touch. I had talked to Dave. I got in his contact information, lost touch. And anyways, I called him back about his small need. He had a 5,000 foot need. And I called him to congratulate him on the move and also be like, hey, you sell that 5,000 foot need? And he said, yeah, I actually do. So I started showing him every 5,000 foot deal under the sun. He's like, we might buy too. And Keenan had a deal over on Distribution Way that was, I guess it was Dent Drive, 13801 Dent Drive. There was a dump. And I think they were flipping it. I think it was like forward, staying back. And I think, I don't know. I've never really talked to Keenan about it. So I get him, they tie it up. And then Keenan sends me an asbestos survey and said, hey, we've already reported this with the state. I'm like, holy shit. So I called Dave. He's like, why are they sending this to us? And I was like, well, they have to disclose it.
Yeah.
So anyways, he bought it. We closed on it for like $68 a foot. He cleaned it up and he was starting to move in. And he's like, hey, this doesn't have sprinklers. And I go, yeah. I mean, we knew it didn't have sprinklers. And he goes, well, go by and take a look at it, see what I did. And I went by and I was like, man, I bet I could get $100 a foot for this.
Yeah.
Because he had cleaned it up. It looked good. And he's like, you think you can get 105? I said, yeah, I bet I could do that. So he ended up selling it. We closed on it for 108. He made $565,000, I remember. And he called me and he said, hey, I want to give you a kicker on the money that we made. I said, no, I just want to be your guy for life. That's all I want to be.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm trying to give you like, 50 grand. And I was like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's led to, he bought it to move this department in. And before they moved in, we flipped it over to Monetary because I sold it. And they did a sublease they did a 3-year deal with Gil Struby on Monetary. I subleased Diplomat. Put them in Benchmark, did another deal on Diplomat, which is actually with ML. Sold land site for him. He put a building on it, sold that building, leased that building.
Yeah.
Sold him another building on Hutton, sold that building for him. We bought it together. Then did Louisville, bought a building, have another couple of deals under contract. So it's been creative. I guess the overall deal is like, how do you become sticky in a situation? And, find a kind of a creative solution. Now, I started as, hey, I hope this guy hires me to find 5,000 feet for him.
Yeah.
To now he's like a business partner with me on deals. So it's kind of cool in this industry how it all flows together.
Yeah. I've got that same client, same guy, took him a deal. He's working with every broker in town, found him the deal before anyone else did and got it done and been with me for life. You know? So, it's always a good feeling when they just forward you the email from someone that sends them an offer. You're like, yeah, I'll take care of this.
Yeah, I know.
So, all right. Well, So you're a street broker, just like I grew up being. What's the diciest situation you've been in?
Oh my God. Early on, I got a listing.
You were telling a story about a dicey situation earlier today, just walking in here, the Forest building.
Oh my God. That'd actually be a good one to talk about. So we show up, we have like this guy, it's an investor, and he's like, hey, I need to be FaceTimed. I want to buy this building on Forest. And Brad in my office like had a connection with this guy. He's like, I love the area, I love the footprint, I love the basis, all the stuff. And we go to Forest, and this building, I mean, it's an okay building. Like I think they put some money into it and stuff, but it's in a rough part of town. Yeah. And there's a bunch of meth heads down there and like homeless people and stuff. So Tom rolls up in his truck. He's like, hey, I'm just going to clear it out a little bit. I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like, we kind of showed up. We're like, it's not the greatest area, but, from an iOS deal, like, it probably makes sense.
Yeah.
And he's like, just stay close. And we go, and there's some new kid that was with you guys. I forgot, maybe Nick?
Nico.
No, Nick.
Oh,
he was
Nick,
with him.
Nick. Okay, yeah.
He's from Mississippi.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was kind of running around with Tom, and he's like, I'm not scared of shit. And I was like, dude, I'm freaking petrified over here. So Tom puts a shotgun on his shoulder, and he has a foghorn, and he's literally yelling German commands out with these German shepherds barking in. These guys are tweaking out in the warehouse. He's like, don't worry, but don't film this part. Don't film this part. We're FaceTiming this guy out of New Jersey. He's like, what the hell is going on in Texas? And I was like, yeah, I think you just got it on a bad day. But I mean, that's the same. Like sometimes you kind of get into these weird situations.
Yeah.
Had another one with Chris Kelly in my office. His dad, I sold his dad a building before I met Chris. Chris sold me season tickets to Stars. And I hated hockey. So I was like, you need to sell real estate. That's how I hired him.
You got me to buy this.
Yeah.
So.
And Chris, he's a great guy. He's an awesome broker. But we get a call from the property manager and said that they locked out a lab, and the lab had broken in and was trying to steal the lab equipment on the first floor. And I get a call, and George is like, are you close? Like, I'm at the ranch. And so I was like, yeah, I'm down the road. Go in there. Me and Chris block off both doors. And the property manager's just screaming at this guy. The guy's like standing in the middle, like, what's going on? I mean, I'm a big dude. Chris is a big dude. Literally.
You're like Twin Towers.
Yeah. Literally, this guy walks, and Chris goes, you're not fucking going anywhere. And we wait for the cops. The cops came and arrested this dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you get into these kind of weird situations in this business. I mean, everyone's had like the listing that had like Lou Leibowitz gave me something on Harry Hines, and we had to run off prostitutes all the time before. I would have to get there 30 minutes before, clean up the needles and stuff like that. It's just part of the game, though.
It's funny. I did an office tenant rep deal one time, and I was like, God, this is nice.
Very different.
Like, there's not needles outside. People actually like have information on their buildings, and
ownership's calling you all the time. Like, hey, how can I, anything I can do to help this deal? Yeah. I'm like, on the other side, it's like, yeah, if your broker would just like call me back, like that'd be awesome. And I get it. Yeah. I get it. It's like they're running 10 other deals on it. Yeah. So office is a different world.
Oh, it is. But it was just, I was like, man, if I was a better looking guy, I would maybe do this, because office brokers are always like the prettiest human beings,
they are.
Right? Like they're
very well manicured.
They're like a guy that's 6'1", probably like 178 pounds,
just
2% body fat,
ready to go.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, so I like to kind of always inquire what your routine is on like brokering, like what do you know, or like what do you use, like what could you not live without, like like I had T-Hub in here the other day, and that he's like, I got to write a list out every day before the end of the day, and that's it. So like what's your kind of thing you got to do every day that makes it all work the next day?
I'm very big on lists. I think that's good. I kind of have like a rolling to-do list that I actually like it. I prefer it written down than, I have Google Docs, and I use Act. not the brightest at act, and we've tried every CRM under the sun. And what I've always figured out is like, you have to do what's at the end of the day, do a brain dump.
Yeah.
I do it on sticky notes.
Yeah.
And it's all over my desk, and and I cross them out as I go, and I add to it. And it's just kind of, it keeps me updated on like where I need to be on stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's like the big thing, but the biggest thing that I've been focusing on is like, how do you get your mind right for the day? And that's like, I honestly probably sound like a Rogan bro on this stuff. Like I do the cold plunge. I love saunas. I love all that stuff because I think it's really good for clarity.
Yeah.
And then it kind of makes you like your time more important when you're like focused on stuff versus, before I had kids and a wife, like, dude, I work 22 hours a day.
Yeah.
They're true. Like when I was dating my wife, she used to say I would get home or get to her place at like 9. We would hang out for like an hour and go to sleep. And she's like, you'd be up at 10:30 and you'd just be like grinding, like figuring it out.
Yeah.
But now it's like, hey, I want to prioritize my wife. I want to prioritize my kids. And so how do you do that? Well, you have to be as efficient as you can with your time. And so I'm trying to figure out as many time hacks as possible. So I'll listen to these podcasts, see what these other guys are doing, and see if there's anything that makes sense that you can go gain 5% efficiencies on anything that you're doing.
It's there's really no substitute for working like that to be where you're at that point in your career. Because that was mine. So mine was, I would get to the office every day at 6 a.m. and then work till about 4 o'clock. Boozer and I go lift weights, come back, work to the office till 6, go home, put the kids to bed, come back to the office at 9:30 and work till 11:30.
Yeah.
Like that's when I lived pretty close to my office. So, that was every day.
Yeah.
That was 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think, the younger brokers that don't, there's some that do that, and there's some that don't. And then there's the ones that don't, they wonder why the others get the results that they get. And it's, I heard something the other day. I thought that was really cool. It says that the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding.
Yeah.
And,
isn't that Walt Disney?
It probably is. Yeah. I don't know. It's some Instagram fucking reels.
Yeah.
But that's, all the top brokers I know, that's what they did. It's watching Boozer. That guy was up there constantly. He had the tightest database out of anybody I'd ever seen, Yeah.
There's no secret sauce to like everything that we do.
No.
Some people like, having a really good database is great, having a good memory, understanding the ownerships and understanding the tenants, but the people that no matter what will get the results are the people that put in the time.
Yeah.
Because you're putting in bad time early
mm-hmm.
and then it becomes better time later.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the big thing. Because when I got in, my dad told me that you need to beat Chad Albert. That was the guy. That was like the person I needed to go attack. And I've told this to Chad. It's kind of crazy. My dad reached out to him and said, hey, my son's getting in. I want you to go to lunch with him. And Chad sent an email back and he said, hey, I got a young guy. I think he should just go to lunch with him. And I was like, dude, I am going to put you on the streets. That was like my viewpoint. I needed it. I needed that. I needed what Chad has termed as the ghost.
Yeah.
And so forever, I had heard the legends that like at NAI, they used to have contests for who would get in the office earliest.
Yeah.
And started people getting at like 7, then they get 6, and then getting 5. And then I had heard that Chad was getting at like 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, there's no way this motherfucker is going to get in the office for me. So I started getting at 3:25. I was like, if Chad got in 3:30 for this contest, I think they got rid of the contest because they're like,
no one's sleeping anymore.
Y'all need to like, you're like passing out at the break room.
Yeah.
So I get in so early just to beat Chad.
Yeah.
Years later, a mentor of mine is named Pat Haggerty. He's been in the business 52 years.
Yeah.
He loves Chad. And now he would talk to me. He calls me every morning between 7:14 and 7:17. And he said, hey, I think you and Chad need to get together. Chad's a really good guy. He's a good broker. You know, y'all are kind of in the same realm. Like, you need to start talking to him. So I went to Chad, reached out. He's like, hey, let's grab coffee. Just catch up. And I don't think I'd ever sat down with him, or I think I maybe toured with him once or twice. And we talked about it. And I told him at the end, he texted me, he's like, hey, it's great meeting you or whatever. He sent me an email. And I said, hey, I thought this would be like a 15-minute meeting. So I appreciate it. You know, we were there for like 2.5 hours. He's like, why do you either thought A, I was an asshole, or B, I didn't provide any value. And I said, what was the former? I thought you were an asshole. Yeah. And I thought you wouldn't give me any value. Yeah. And probably 60 days later, we had bought a building together. And then we sold that building like 30 days later. We're trying to lease it. And some group came in and said they bought it. Yeah. And he's become a very good friend of mine. I can bounce ideas off him. Now, obviously, he left NAI and started Stoic. Yeah. And they're building a team over there. So it's interesting, like how, and he always terms, he's like, find that email. Well, I can't find the email. I was like, he's moving in his new building. I was like, I'm going to find it. I'm going to put it in a plaque and put it on your wall. He's like, you can put it on my wall. Yeah. I can't find the fucking email. I literally think I envisioned it in my mind, or my dad just lied to me. It would have been something my dad would have done too. It's like, hey, you got to find this demon out there and just go beat it. And I swear for like 7 or 8 years, that was what I was chasing. Yeah. And what Chad always calls it is the ghost. You were just chasing the ghost. Yeah. Which is kind of good. You know, I just needed it.
Well, sometimes getting punked is a real motivator.
Oh, absolutely.
It changes things a lot. That's all I got for you, man.
Yeah.
We'll do this again because you have a depth of stories, and we're buying.
Unfortunately.
We're buying a bunch of stuff and we're exiting stuff and all that stuff. So, well, real quick, what do you think 24 looks like?
Looks great.
Looks good.
I think that there's going to be opportunities. I mean, we talk about this a lot. There's opportunities always. It's just about what lens you're looking at it. I do think a lot of the groups that have done very well in Dallas over the years is not the super large REITs, but it's kind of the private groups that can go and raise money and have bought stuff. And I think there's kind of an opportunity to be one of those guys.
Yeah.
Because it's all about being nimble and being agile and, you know, making offers quick and providing ability to close and, you know, kind of thinking creatively. And we're going to see a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of opportunities like that. And everyone thought it was going to happen last year. It didn't. And you know, leasing rates are still high.
Yeah. What about lease rates, though? What do you think lease rates?
I don't know. I mean, I think they've kind of, they have plateaued. Yeah. I think if anything, they've kind of dropped a little bit. Yeah. And I'm not saying that stuff that's on the market has dropped, but when they come to the market, they're a little cheaper. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, I followed Prologis' model and they're thinking 1.5% increases per month over the next 3 years, which is about 22% per year. So Dallas overall, DFW, Texas, we're still relatively cheap compared to the coast. Yeah. And we're becoming more desirable to live. So I don't know. I think that if you knew, you would be an absolute billionaire and you could always have that crystal ball ready to roll. But sure. I think that there's going to be opportunities. Yeah. That's just kind of the big net on it.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
We didn't buy near what we bought last year because it was just couldn't make the connection on a lot of things.
I mean, I tell my guys all the time, like, there's 2 types of people in the world. People that bought in Dallas over the next 5 years and the people who wish they did. Right? Yeah, that's right. Kind of what it is. Yeah. So you believe in the market, you have conviction in what you're doing. And if you can, I mean, the debt instrument is the big issue. Yeah. If you can actually do it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. If you can solve for the debt, then.
Yeah. But we're looking at stuff. I mean, the stuff that you're looking at is significantly less than what it would have been 18 months ago. Yeah. So you're buying on a discount. Yeah. That's the way to view it.
Right. Well, Rich, thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Anybody needs something in North Dallas, he's the man. And anyways,
cool, man.
Good having you. Thank you.
Thanks, bud.